Hey everybody, Scott here. Before we get started on this week's episode, I just wanted to let you guys know that we did not realize until after we had finished recording this episode that today just so happens to be the 5th anniversary of Paul Walker's death. It was November 30th, 2013, 5 years ago that Paul Walker was in that tragic car accident and lost his life. And this is not something we mentioned in the episode because, like I said, we didn't realize it. We do talk about Paul's death. We talk about how his death impacted the franchise and how the 7th movie kind of sent him off and the ways it did that. But we don't mention that this is the anniversary of his death. And I just thought we should do that. Rest in peace, Paul. We really miss you.
You'll always be with me. And you'll always be my brother.
How can we not talk about family when family's all that we got? Everything I would do, you were standing there by my side. And now you gon' be there for the last ride.
Hello and welcome to the Doofcast, the official variety podcast of doofmedia.com. My name is Scott Daly, and you can have any beer you want, as long as it's a Corona.
And my name is Matt Freeman, and I don't have friends. I got family.
Is that your Vin Diesel?
I mean, it didn't really work, did it?
No. This week on the podcast, we continue to work through our ridiculously long backlog of patron-produced shows by honoring the request of our patron Bobby, who donated at the Doof Warrior level on Patreon, and therefore got to pick a topic for us to do a show on. Matt, what did Bobby want us to talk about today?
He wanted us to hang out with the Carr family and talk about the Fast and the Furious franchise.
That's right. And because it felt weird talking about the show without bringing in some of our extended family, we have Sesh Evans joining the program once again. Welcome back, Sesh.
Hi, guys. How's it going?
It's going well. I can't wait to talk about these ridiculous movies with you.
Me too. I'm super excited. I saw that you guys had this as a possibility, and I was like, okay, put me on the list, because I like those movies.
And as an FYI, we asked Michael to join us today also, but he informed me that he was boycotting movies that have cars in them. So that's a bummer.
That is strange that there is a train in at least one of these movies. So
yeah, there's a literal train robbery.
There's a tank.
And I would call it great.
Maybe he didn't know that there was a train.
He probably didn't. Yeah. All right, so I think this is a big topic for a show. We got a lot of movies to talk about here. We're going to try to distill it down and only talk about a few of them, maybe some of our favorite moments. Try to get a handle on this series as a whole. I love it, and I want to kind of talk with you guys about why I love it and why I think it's as popular and successful as it has been. So let's just jump right into it. Let's talk about the franchise of the Furious.
okay.
The names are so confusing in this thing.
They're insanely confusing. As long as there's fast, you're okay.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
no, sometimes there's not fast. Sometimes there's just Furious.
And sometimes there's just Tokyo.
Oh,
Well, that one says
Well,
Fast
it's a
and the
subtitle,
Furious.
you're right. Damn it. Yeah, okay.
so many names.
All right. Before we get into it, I kind of wanted to go around our digital table and talk a little bit about our history with the series. How had you seen these movies before? What do you think about this, the franchise as a whole? What was your experience with watching these movies? And we'll start with you, Sesh.
Ooh, boy.
Talk to me.
So for me, I was already a Vin Diesel fan back in the day when the first one came out, and I watched it, and it's fun. Watching it again older, it's like, holy crap, it's such a classic. I feel it's way up there with a ton of action films. But I hadn't seen any of the other movies except I think I was 6 or 7. So I only had seen those 2. And this was all last year before the last movie was coming out. I have a couple of my Smash Brothers buddies, a couple that I hang out with a lot. They were furious with me that I hadn't seen all of them. So we made.
See what you did there.
Yes, I'm so genius. We made it a mission whenever we would hang out. This was the course of almost a year. Seriously, when we found out it was coming out, to get me to watch all of them and us just watch them all together. Because that was a super special movie franchise for them, and them just being a couple, and it being in LA, and Paul Walker living in like Santa Clarita, which is like where she lives. And so it was just like a huge deal for them. And like I'm their close friend. So it became a whole new thing. And now I'm in on that as well. And I was able to watch all the movies just in time for the new movie to come out, which we all saw together in theaters. So big fun time.
Awesome. So would you say you like the franchise overall?
I do. I think rewatching it, especially like the first movie, watching it again, I have such a better appreciation for it. Like it's just so like, I mean, I can go into the first movie once we start really talking about it, but I really enjoy the whole series. Like I'm a fan of just how, I mean, like basically anything Vin Diesel. I love Vin Diesel. I don't care how crazy or out there or physics defining he ever gets. I don't care. It's Vin Diesel. I'm a fan. Like it's awesome. Stupid. I don't care. I love it. And it does a lot of stuff really well too. Like it does actually have a lot of heart. It does actually have a lot of really fun characters, that besides Vin Diesel, you know? So there's a lot to enjoy about it. Like, and it's just a fun action movie. It's just a fun, dumb action movie. Like, you gotta let yourself like that sometimes.
I agree. Matt, how about you? What was your history with this family?
Yeah, I had only watched the first movie ever. And, you know, it's funny. I had also always loved Vin Diesel's movies. Like, I've always been a fan of the Riddick and Pitch Black movies. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And enjoyed Triple X. Basically, yeah, I would call myself a Vin Diesel fan as well. And but for whatever reason, like the first movie, I was just like, yeah, that was fine. I don't think I like thought it was, you know, bad. I just never felt like the other movies were my thing, so I never saw them. So I've had to catch up in the last month or so. But yeah, very little familiarity with the series. Just saw the first movie once, you know, years and years ago.
Cool.
Yeah. How about you, Scott?
So I remember. So I had we were in college, and I think Matt, this was after I was no longer living with you and Michael, but this was when I was off in the duplex house I lived at. Mm-hmm. One of my roommates was like really into cars, and he loved these movies, and I thought they were stupid, and I made fun of him so much for like calling Tokyo Drift one of his favorite movies. I mercilessly mocked him for that. So I really didn't give the series the time of day until Fast 5 came out. And then everyone started talking about how good this movie was. And I was like, no, that's the dumb car movie. That's stupid. No, that's not good. You don't know what you're talking about. I was also in my like pretentious, like too good for fun movies phase of my life. But then I watched it and I loved it. And then I went back and watched all the other ones. And I've been a huge fan of this series since. I've seen every movie after the fifth one in theaters, like anxiously awaiting for it to come out in theaters. And there's something about the series, there's something about these characters, what this thing does that I just can't help but love. And we're going to get into this a little bit, but the thing that I love most about the series is whenever it kind of starts to feel a little stale, it reinvents itself. It swerves and becomes something else. And that thing that it becomes is usually just even more ridiculous than it was before. And that's one of the things I really, really love about it.
Yeah, I agree. Like the fact it doesn't seem to take itself too seriously is what saves it for me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right, so we've got to talk about these movies. I don't think we're going to talk about every single movie. We might try, but maybe not in a lot of detail. But before we dive into these movies in detail, I think we got to run down the movies and like talk about what happens in these movies. Before we can talk about the series as a whole, we need to go through this ridiculous series of events that is the plot line of these films. So
that's a refresher.
Yeah. So this is going to be, I guess, if you care about spoilers and the Fast and the Furious franchise, I'm worried about you, but spoilers for all 8 movies in the Fast and the Furious franchise. We're going to run through them. We're going to try to be quick here with this, guys, because we want to really dive into analyzing them, but we have to cover this ridiculous stuff.
Sounds good. Let's do it.
All right, everyone take a deep breath. It's going to be a while. All right,
rev up your engine.
Boom, boom.
All right, wave the flag.
All right.
Flag girls, go.
So we start with The Fast and the Furious. This movie came out in 2001. It was directed by Rob Cohen and starred Paul Walker as an undercover cop named Brian O'Connor investigating some high-speed truck robberies. They were stealing DVD players and VHS players and like those TV VHS combos. If that makes you feel crazy about how long ago this movie came out.
Wow.
Syracuse.
Anyway, it turns out the trucks were being robbed by Dominic Toretto, played by Vin Diesel. This movie is basically a Point Break remake, but with like lots of cars and stuff. Brian can't help but be infatuated by Dom's lifestyle, his strong family ties, his insane driving, and his super hot sister Mia. We also meet Letty, Dom's forever boo, played by Michelle Rodriguez. And at the end of the movie, Dom finds out that Brian is a cop, but then Brian lets him go because you don't turn your back on family. And that's Fast and the Furious, a small little Point Break clone
Yeah.
that spawned this whole huge thing.
Elegant little movie. All right, moving right along into Too Fast, Too Furious, my favorite entry in the franchise, was released in 2003, directed by John Singleton. In this film, Brian's not a cop anymore for Dom-related reasons, and he's hanging out in Miami, driving recklessly and working for newly introduced character Ludacris.
Tej, man.
Tej, yeah.
How do you not... Oh, I'm so upset with you.
Ludacris. In this movie, he's just a really good mechanic, but then he later becomes like a general purpose tech hacker guy. The FBI wants Brian's help to do undercover work because people in this series rarely learn their lesson. Brian recruits his old high school friend, Roman, played by Tyrese Gibson, my favorite character in the franchise, and along with a criminally underused Eva Mendes, they take down a giant drug cartel by landing a car on a boat. This is crazy and the most clearly homoerotic film in the franchise.
Yup.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so number 3, Tokyo Drift. Possibly my least favorite, but also favorite in other ways. It's strange. So directed by Justin Lin, who I know goes on to direct a bunch of these. The next 3, actually, according to the script. Technically, it takes place 7th in the timeline for weird reasons we'll get into later. Stars Lucas Black as Sean Boswell, a character I did not like very much. A black hole of charisma that basically ruins the movie. Yes, he does. Introduces Han, a slick dude that teaches Sean how to drift before promptly getting blown up. Sean is the best. I loved it, and I love that this was also Initial D, the movie. Anyways, no, this is the first and only moment in the movie where reckless driving actually has serious consequences. Dun, dun, dun. Which is later gone away. This movie's not great, but it gives us Han, which I agree is a treasure, and Justin Lin, who is the dude who saves the franchise, which is very true.
Yep. And then next we have Fast and Furious. The names are starting to get confusing, guys. This one came out in 2009, and it's the worst one, in my opinion. Brian is an FBI agent because, once again, no one ever learns their lessons in the series. Dom, worried about Letty's safety, leaves her behind and goes into hiding. And then she gets murdered. Good job, Dom. Turns out the guy that murdered Letty is also the guy Brian is investigating, so they team up again to take down another evil drug lord. Also, we meet Gal Gadot's Giselle. She's pretty awesome. Our heroes beat the bad guys, and Dom turns himself in, only to be sent to prison for life anyway because the system sucks. Brian immediately stages a prison break, finally deciding that maybe he's not supposed to be in law enforcement. This movie isn't bad per se. It's just not very interesting, especially when you compare it to
Fast 5,
Bum, bum, bum.
released in 2011, and it's a fucking heist movie. Dom, Mia, and Brian go to Brazil to hide, so we have some setting stuff going on there. But they decide to steal shit while they're there because why not? This angers another different drug lord, and also the DEA agent who sends Hobbs, the Rock, after them. Dom and Brian decide to get a team together to steal all the drug lord's money. This is the first time the Fast and Furious Avengers assemble, bringing back Han, Giselle, Roman, Tej, and some people that aren't that important to steal $100 million. We also meet Elena, a sexy Brazilian lady working for Hobbs that ends up having the hots for Dom, because every woman does in these movies. In the end, Hobbs helps the team out because you can't help but love the family. This is the biggest shift for the franchise as it moves from being about racing cars to ridiculously outlandish set pieces like dragging a giant safe through the streets of Rio and destroying banks and probably killing like 200 innocent people. It's also clearly the best one. Scott wrote this.
I did write that.
I don't know. I mean, in Fast and Furious 6, we find out that Letty is alive, and we've been missing her for so many of these movies already. We needed her back.
Yeah, looks like we're going to be having some arguments later. So anyway, this one ends with Brian and Mia getting married, and they're going to have a baby, and also Han and Giselle fall in love. And then we move on into Sesh's pick, I suppose.
Yep. Well, I'm glad that Letty's back for Fast and Furious 6. She is somehow alive and working for some evil British dude named Shaw. Once Dom finds out, he promptly ditches Elena, sorry girl, to go after her. Come on, she's the ride or die girl. You gotta go for her.
Yeah.
Go after her, bringing his whole team along once again. Turns out Letty has amnesia, whoops, and doesn't remember Dom, whoopsie again. But that doesn't matter because he's irresistible. Seriously, he is. He plays D&D, and he's huge. Okay, they take down a tank, flip Letty, and manage to blow up an airplane. Giselle dies, which is really sad because we liked her. And saving Han, and yeah, it's all very sad. Very, very sad. It was happy, and then it was sad.
It was very sad. And then we move into Furious 7, which came out in 2015, and this is the sad one. Mm-hmm. We're now caught up with the Tokyo Drift timeline, so the movie starts with Han dying. Turns out Shaw's older brother, played by Jason Statham, is the one that killed him because he wanted revenge and stuff. The family is real mad about this and tries to go after Shaw with the help of Kurt Russell's Mr. Nobody, a creepy government dude who just thinks Dom is the absolute best. Justin Lin has departed the franchise at this point, and director James Wan takes over. And he really likes camera shots of girls' butts. Like, he really, there's a lot of girls' butts in this movie.
Like, more than the other movies?
Yes,
Okay.
Like, considerably more.
Oh, wow.
The Rock really is not in this movie enough because he gets injured early on and doesn't come back till the third act. But the moments he's in it are absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. Of course, the thing that this movie is most well known for is Paul Walker's tragic death that happened while they were filming the movie. They had to paste over a lot of his work with the help of his brother. And at the end of the movie, to kind of write his character out, Brian decides he's had enough of the life of ridiculous car stunts and goes off to be with his wife and children. It's a really sad and a beautiful tribute to Paul Walker. And I cried. I cried a lot at the end of this movie. The movie itself is it's okay. It's just okay.
All right. Which leads us into The Fate of the Furious, released in 2007. This is the most recent one, I suppose.
17.
2017. Directed by F. Gary Gray. Charlize Theron joins the movie as a bad guy and forces Dom to become a bad guy too, because it turns out Dom knocked up that British Elena chick, and now her and their child are being held captive. Dom has to betray the family, and it's all very emotional. The family recruits Jason Statham's Shaw to help him take down Dom, because apparently we all just forgot that Jason Statham killed Han. It's okay, though, because the Hobbs/Shaw interactions are what absolutely saved this movie. In the end, Dom turns the tables on Charlize because he's Dom and the team manager to defeat a submarine with their cars. Elena gets shot in the face, but Shaw saves Dom's baby, so he gets to be in the family now, I guess. Scott apparently thinks this is bullshit.
It is bullshit. Hashtag justice for Han.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So that is the Fast and the Furious. People die, people fall in love, people have babies, and they ditch those women that they had babies with because their other women are back, and the woman they ditched is like surprisingly cool with it. That is this series.
Yep.
So let's dive into it. I guess we got to start at the beginning, Matt. Let's talk about the Fast and the Furious. I think, Sesh, you said this is you really, really like this movie. So I kind of want to hear like what did you love so much about the first little tiny entrance into this world?
So I mean, going back and seeing this one and seeing how it's so down to earth and script driven, even though it's very it's still an action movie. It is very much Point Break. It is super Point Break. Like, I saw these like way back when this was in theaters, and Point Break, like, at the same time, like within the same year. So they reminded me of each other. I just like Paul Walker better at the time. So I thought it was, and then again, like being a big Vin Diesel fan, like just everything about it, it just all stuck. Like thought about every line, the action, like the chases, the car stuff was all really, really fun. I'm totally not a car person at all, but this movie like kind of made me want to get into it. And then like revisiting it, it just felt so like, I don't quite want to say down to earth, but like it had like a gritty realness to it anyways. And it just, and also like I had within that time from when I first saw it to when I saw it more recently, like I had moved to LA. So like there was like a lot more like familiarity with it too. It's like, oh my God, I know that skyline. I know this. Wow, like they really, they shot this here for real. Wow, that's so cool. Like I've been on that street. Like it just had like, it just felt so much more real for so many reasons, and like, almost not even considering like later on in the franchise what happens and how crazy it gets, but even just like plucking it out and just watching like a 2001 action movie compared to like an action movie now, like it just holds up really, really well. And I was really happy and surprised with that. And like I absolutely love like Vin Diesel and Michelle Rodriguez in it. Paul Walker was cute Paul Walker the whole time, and the rest was regular action movie. It was fun stuff. Like it did everything it was supposed to do right.
It really surprised me, and continues to surprise me how small this movie is. Mm-hmm. This is a pretty small movie. I mean, yes, there are action sequences, but there's one big chase scene. But most of the driving sequences are people just driving in a straight line really fast for a quarter mile, and that's it.
But it's
they
not
live their life
tension.
a quarter mile at a time.
But it was so good because it like still had tension between all the characters and him being undercover. Like it pulled it off.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's just so surprising to me that nowhere in this movie do they, like, except for one part, do they drive fast, like not going straight forward. Like it's not until the second movie where the racing actually starts being like you're racing around corners, and then like they introduce drifting, and then things escalate there. But this is really like most of the climactic sequence in this movie is Dom and Brian racing, a quarter mile to get past a line before a train comes, and they're just going straight forward. And of course they have the magic power that is Nas, which is like the magical fuel in this thing that does whatever you need it to at the time. Solves all your problems.
I think that this first movie was the only one that tried to be anything close to faithful to, like, we're going to show this underground racing scene that actually exists in real life. And maybe stylize it just a tad to make it a little bit more, photogenic. And then every subsequent movie is just like a fantasy magical realism world where like it is practical to use a car as your primary means of burglary, combat, pretty much everything.
Fist fighting.
Yeah, right. Which is fine within those contexts, but this movie is trying to keep one foot on the ground, and that's what's unique about it, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, the driving factor behind the creation of this movie was to draw attention to that underground street racing scene, and everything else around it is just conflict, stapled to it to make a movie.
Right.
But like you can tell that what the movie really wants to be about is just, isn't it cool that these people like love like souped up cars and that whole world, and they just love doing this thing, and they get such a kick out of it. And yeah, we add crime and violence to it for fun in a movie. But yeah, that is what the movie's about. And I think like that's probably why I didn't like it at the time, because the thing about me is I love these movies. I don't give a shit about cars. I really don't. I don't care about cars at all. I drive a Toyota Camry. I don't want any other car. I will drive that. I will drive that type of car for the rest of my life, and I'll be absolutely fine with it. But there's something about these characters that draw you in. And rewatching it in preparation for the show, I was surprised by how much I was into the characters from the beginning. And the secret weapon of this whole series, the guy that's always been there but is like never like thought about when you're thinking about why this movie is good, is Paul Walker. I think he's the heart of the series, and I think that's why after he's gone after the seventh one, I think the eighth movie really has problems, and a lot of the problems stem from the fact that he's not there. And I think it's just because he's just a very likable, like everyman type of dude that is almost our surrogate in this crazy world.
Mm-hmm. He has this innocence that he carries through all of the movies.
Yeah. Even in the later movies where he's like been screwed over and jaded by life, he still has that like innocent glow to him. And I think that's just a Paul Walkerism.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is while and this is gonna get me on my Dom kick maybe, but like while Dom is basically like the badass, like the movies are always trying to make you think Dom is the badass. The movie Paul Walker is very often the dog that gets kicked. Like he is there to show how cool Dom is, and it's not just the first movie; it's like all the movies where you almost never get like a hero shot where Brian gets to actually look really badass, right? He's the butt of a lot of jokes. It makes him a lot more relatable, I think, because I mean I don't find frankly Dom to be relatable at all, but as you say, like Brian is the self-insert that the audience insert in a way that is actually relatable because he's not too badass.
Yeah. I mean, he does get some badass moments later in the series.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like there's definitely some, but I think like he just has this like he's like ultimate good guy all the time. Like even if he's committing these crimes, like we got to do it the right way. Or he does have that innocence to him, and he does have like this good guy mentality to him about his approaches to everything. Mm-hmm. And so there's some times where he's like kind of checking Dom. It's like we got to do it this way, not that way. Dom's, being his badass, like, all right, fine, whatever, pretty boy, like that kind of attitude.
Yeah.
But I think it really is both of them. Like, I do really think Vin Diesel carries a lot, but it definitely doesn't work as well without like that good boy there too.
I think the secret to Vin Diesel, and I think we're going to talk about this as we get further into the series, is that he needs to be surrounded by a large cast of characters. And the more the movies focus on just him, the more they suffer for it. And I think the problems with the movies, as we get later into them, is because they increasingly become the Vin Diesel's, like, I'm awesome narrative. Like, it becomes like... These movies become so big and so financially successful that he wields so much power that he is more commanding of how, and he takes his character very seriously. He's that type of actor, and he wields a lot of power in how his character is depicted, and he loves this character, so he is going to make this character the best, and he is going to force the movies to focus on him and only him. And I do think that it suffers for it later in the movies. But I'm interested, Matt. You seemed to not like him from the start, which is I found something like Paul Walker. I found something alluring in the character of Dominic Toretto from the very beginning, because he's this amalgamation of like tough guy stereotypes with this really like obsessively warm-hearted underneath.
Yeah. I've been struggling to put my finger on what it is, because like I said, it's not that Vin Diesel annoys me, because like Riddick is strictly a more ridiculous character, but I love Riddick. But there's just something about Dom's like performative macho thing where I perhaps it's that I'm an old man and a father, but I just find it so tiresome. I don't know what it like. That's the thing. I don't know. Like that's just me kind of like fumbling for something where I'm just like, I'm like just rolling my eyes at his, one-liners and everything. And whereas like I find Brian and really all the other characters more relatable for their imperfection and the fact that they actually seem to struggle. I guess that's it. Is I just don't like Dom never seems to struggle, like in the movie where in the movie where his like love of his life dies, he like doesn't emote about it. He's just like I'm gonna get revenge.
Yeah, it was super flat the whole time, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean that is. I think that's an interesting thing about Vin Diesel as an actor, is that he doesn't emote very much. Like Riddick is like by design a character that doesn't emote very much, right? Like that's the type of character he is.
Yes, but he still emotes more when people die in both of those. Well, I haven't seen all of them, which is insane. But
you haven't seen the new What?
I know. You, and last time, and we've had this conversation, and then I forgot again. Yeah, you said you're gonna force me to watch the last one, and then that still hasn't happened.
That must have been so long ago that I've forgotten about it, which means it's even more ridiculous that you haven't seen that movie.
But when
yet.
people die in those movies, in Pitch Black and the Chronicles of Riddick, he like almost cries at least. Maybe not actually cries, but maybe shouts loudly in rage. In this movie, he's just like, oh. I guess
he doesn't have time for crying.
Yeah.
He's got to tough it out in this movie, which is he gets a little stale. I still love him, but yeah, I definitely see what you mean. He just toughs it out, whatever is happening.
Yeah, I'm not trying to convince anybody not to like it. I'm just saying like these movies do work for me. He's just not an aspect of the movies that works for me.
Well, and I think that's interesting because, and I think I kind of agree with you, because I think what people love about this movie and this series is the family, right? So, and I think Dominic Toretto is responsible for that feeling of like, these are people that do anything for each other. Like I remember in the 6th movie, it's after the 5th one, they've got $100 million. Like every person is like living their best life. They're doing what they wanted to do. They're doing wonderfully. Dom calls them all because he needs them, and they drop everything they're doing right away. They don't even think about it. There's not even a moment of hesitation or consideration to whether they're going to stop living their amazing life and go do something dangerous and possibly die. They just do it. And I think it's that feeling that people love about these movies. And he's responsible for that feeling, but it's not him. You know what I'm saying? Like it's like
yeah.
like his character and his performance creates this aura of the importance of family and brings all these amazing characters around him, and he's at the center of it. But like I think all those other things are better than he is, but he's still necessary to make that work. I guess. I don't know if I'm.
I like that he emphasizes that. No, I think I know what you mean. Like he's kind of not much more really than the glue between all of them, and I think that was really well established even in the very, very first movie. Like he's just this glue that they all really care about, maybe more than they do about like each other. Even he's just that glue that brings together this amazing team. Like he's not necessarily the best leader. He's not the smartest. He's smaller than The Rock. Like he's not like actually the best at any of these things over time. But he's just like this solid glue that just holds them all together.
I think that's a great point, because no one looks like a model airplane and says, you know what my favorite part of that airplane is? The glue.
Good. Well said.
So I think I like that. I like that he's the glue, but everything else is the shiny greatness. And that's like all the other characters. I love them so much. I love Han. I love Giselle. Mm-hmm. The Roman Tej thing that happens in these movies is great. They become like, I think you're right, Matt, that Brian is kind of the whipping boy earlier in the movies, in the series.
Yeah.
But once we get Roman in it, like that becomes Roman's role.
Yeah.
And it's a role he slots into like beautifully.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's like, I think that's what I enjoyed so much about the second movie is the just delightful back and forth between those two characters, where it's not, I'm trying not to just like continue to shit on Dom, but like it's not like one of them being strictly cooler and making the other one look like a fool. Like they're both kind of goofy. And the movie is very goofy. Like it reminds me, and this just occurred to me while we were talking, the tone of this movie reminds me of Independence Day. It was only made 7 years after Independence Day, after all. It feels like a 90s movie in tone. Because I mean, there's like all these fight scenes in the movie where if you just like played different music over it, it would be just slapstick. Like I think a lot of it is slapstick and like plays as humor rather than like exciting action. Like there's a scene where they like pull somebody out of a car and like take turns hitting and kicking him, and then like they'll like start to walk away and then come back and kick him more times, and there's just like no way that's not supposed to be funny.
Oh,
and,
it absolutely is.
They had a lot of chemistry. I feel like a lot of that was probably them just like, hey, you know what would be funny? Yeah, this would be funny. Yeah, that would be funny. And then like they go with it, and I felt like that was really fun. I did like that a lot. I think the second movie for me, it was kind of like, okay, this is where a normal franchise will take the story next. and it didn't super work out a whole lot. And then they're like, okay, let's do something else, new characters. Okay, none of that worked. Let's just bring everyone back. Just go back to what we were doing, and let's make it more crazy. And so like the second one like makes sense. Like that is exactly what you would have predicted, kind of what the second movie would be like after watching and only ever seeing the first movie and not knowing about what the future holds.
Yeah, I mean, I can concede that some of these other movies were like better made, but this is the movie. The Too Fast, Too Furious is the one where I was literally smiling or like chuckling for like the entire runtime. I don't know, like that just never happens, right? It's both silly and like economical storytelling. You know, usually if something's silly, it's like, okay, this is just lazy, but this is, I don't know. I thought it was pretty tight. I liked it.
Yeah, I mean, I want to talk about the directing a little bit because this is another movie. John Singleton came in here and did one movie. This movie looks different from any other movie in this series. It is very stylistically different. And I think he does like a weird thing with angles and cuts here that I don't really like. A lot of it seems too choppy to me. But he also loves something that you pointed out in the Discord, Matt. Like the Nas in all of these movies is like basically like the car going like super mode. But the Nas in this movie is literally them going into hyperspace. Like the way Singleton shoots this thing is like everything blurs and it's like they're going faster than the speed of sound.
It's so funny.
Like, well, I mean, like the light changes color as if it's like red shifted, or blue shifted perhaps.
Besides like the space and the CGI, like this one felt more like a modern like just action film. Like the way it was shot, it definitely had. God, it had so much more budget. Like that, I think was one of my first thoughts when I first saw this movie. It was like, oh, this is so much more money than the first one.
Yeah, and this is the only one that takes place in Miami, and this feels like a very Miami movie, right? Like the color, the tones, the color, the energy of the movie feels very Miami, and I think it largely works. Like I agree with you, Matt, this is a fun movie. It's definitely not my favorite in the series, but it is a lot of fun. And, you know, Brian and Roman are in love with each other. Like, that is, like, barely subtext in this movie. Like, Eva Mendes, who is a beautiful woman, is in this movie, and, like, Brian is clearly into her a little bit, but they don't do anything with that relationship. Like, it's just not, like, it's just kind of tossed aside.
She's so great, too. Like,
because it's not about her relationship with him. It's about his relationship with Roman. That's what the movie's about.
Yeah, and that's perfect. I that's exactly the way I want it to be. It's perfect. I don't like. I would be so bored and disappointed if they went that way, right? Like, and that would just be like exactly the kind of thing that I get bored with, where it's like, yeah, well, we have to show how cool the lead is, and so he has to get the girl. It's like, no, this movie does not actually care to show how cool the lead is. It's it's a bit of a comedy. Like, I don't want to say Lethal Weapon because that's like really different in tone actually, but like Lethal Weapon kind of makes fun of the leads too.
Yeah, this was more buddy cop rather than like cliche action, kind of what you expect from like the first movie.
Buddy cop is exactly the right thing. I also love Cole Hauser. I didn't actually know that was his name, but the villain is I just love him in everything that he's in. He's a great villain.
He doesn't come back though. He's one of the few people that doesn't come back.
Just wait. There's like 2 more movies at least.
That's because him and Vin Diesel can't be in the same movie because Vin Diesel already killed him in Pitch Black.
Oh, I see.
It's true.
Talking about the romance though, this is like characters get together in this movie, in these movies rather, and it is an important part about these movies, but it's played so weirdly, right? Like, I don't think these movies focus on any of the relationships really. Like, Brian and Mia is this really important relationship to the movies, and the first one focuses on like them falling in love kind of. But then they're just together, and it's just like assumed. I think the same thing with Dom and Letty. It's just like they're together, they're in love. Like Han and Giselle almost like get together off screen. Like they have one kiss at the end of 5, I think, and then like they're in love after that. It's just interesting that like the romance section of these movies as important as these character interactions is always kind of like underplayed. The movies are never really interested in diving too deeply into that.
Yeah, it's always sprinkled in.
Yeah.
Which I kind of like. Like, I actually really like how much of Dom and Letty there is. Like, I love what I do see of their relationship. Like, I'm super entertained by it. Like, they are just each other's lives, and they were just so right for each other in so many different ways that, like, they don't even have to have a lot of romantic moments for you to just see that.
Yeah. But, like, okay, so at the end of the 6th movie, Letty has gone back with Dom, and she's back with Dom now because she's alive, yay. She doesn't remember anything. She doesn't remember him, but she's with him again. Like, the movie ends with her sitting on his lap around the dinner table, and everyone's happy, and they're home in LA, and yay, everything's great. But, like, she doesn't remember him. And that's actually what part of the thing I liked in the 7th movie is it actually explored that. Like, she's actually immensely uncomfortable with this whole situation because, like, every time he looks at her, he sees this woman he's loved his entire life, and she doesn't see that. But It's just kind of weird to me that it's just like, okay, she's with him again because it's Dom and Letty, but it's not Letty because she doesn't have any of her memories yet.
But her personality is the same, so they're still drawn together. Don't you get it?
Yeah, because you know everything you need to know about a person by how they drive. I don't do a very good Vin Diesel either, but that's literally a line in the movie.
You know what? That line does work on her, so it works.
Yeah. When I'm sick, I can do a good Vin Diesel, but not right now. Yeah, it's just interesting. It's kind of like Memento, you know? Like, she has the habit of loving Dom.
There you go.
Can't forget a habit.
That is what she says at the end of the 6th movie. They're sitting around the dinner table, and he says, does any of this feel familiar to you? And she says, no, but it feels like home. And then you're all happy, I guess, because whatever that means.
It's good enough.
Okay, so what do you want to talk about next, Mac?
I mean...
Yeah, I see, that's the thing. I've talked about my favorite now. I feel like the Fast Five, where The Rock enters, is probably worth talking about because...
Yeah, I mean, when we originally scoped this episode, I think that's the one I kind of wanted to scope it around because this is the one where the series does fundamentally pivot away from being a movie about people that drive cars to being a movie about people that are superheroes that just... their superpower happens to be has a car.
They've just turned off physics, okay?
Yeah, they did.
That's all they did.
True. Yeah, no, that's a great way of putting it since they can pull a 10-ton safe with their cars.
But I mean, it's not just that though. There are gunfights in this movie. Like it is a heist movie. Like that's what it is. They get the team together. The team does all this thing. We have all our team planning, our montages of them trying to figure out how to make things work. It's precisely what it is. It's a car heist movie.
It's like the fist fight between The Rock and Diesel is much like longer and more kind of like what's the word, like stylistic than most of them. Like that's one thing I didn't want to forget to say, that like I always appreciate that Brian consistently uses jiu-jitsu in every single fight that he's in, whereas Dom just like punches the shit out of people like with no real style other, like he's just like a brawler, and like that works. Like that's their characters.
Yeah, it's perfect for their characters. You know, it's one of those things they've talked about and they're just like, nah, you're gonna do it this way.
Yeah. And I love this is the third movie in the franchise that Justin Lin has directed, Fast Five. And he's taken his time over these first two movies to this one to really he's set like a visual style for what these movies are. And I think this is the movie he wanted to make like the whole time, and they just had to get there. Like Tokyo Drift, they were trying to do something else. Fast and Furious is almost like a proto Fast Five because they start gathering all the old crew together. And then Fast Five is the one that really just embraces the gathering of the family. And The Rock, they called him the franchise savior for a reason, because he comes into this movie and just injects it with this new, different kind of energy. And it's wonderful. I love The Rock. I haven't seen a good Rock movie in a while because the movies he was in this year were pretty bad. He's just great. He's just phenomenal. And I really think his introduction to the series saves it in a way that can't be understated.
I think it's perfect too, because the timing for him to come in, this is right when he was getting good because he was acting for a little while and it was all pretty bad, and I wouldn't have been surprised like if he was considered for an earlier movie, just like, yeah, let's throw him in, you know, this is Rock, he's acting now, it'll be great, big guys, yeah. But this one was like the perfect time for him to come in because he is actually, you know, again, like I keep saying the big thing, but it's kind of funny and it's kind of great to have somebody that is actually bigger than Vin Diesel in the movie. Well, like that kind of shows him up in like such a fun way, and it's just this movie more than any of the others, or maybe this one to start with, felt like it was like all like fanfare, like it was just give them everything they want and a little more.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like the Avengers of the series. Like the Avengers was the Marvel Cinematic Universe like taking a victory lap. They're like, we did it. Here's this big, huge spectacle because we brought all these characters together and we pulled it off and we did it. And that's what Fast Five feels to me for this franchise. It's like, look what we're doing. They're dragging a safe down the highway. It doesn't seem to be damaging the road at all, which is great. Like it's so absurd and amazing. It's
tiny wheels.
It's so good. It's so good. Like everything in this movie is just insane. Like the characters are pinging off each other. They bring like Tej and Roman really didn't interact that much in Fast 2. They're mostly like not in the same room at the same time except for one or two moments, but they bring those characters in and they immediately start playing off each other. The Rock Diesel feud that we're going to get into, which is a real outside the movie feud, like starts up and that immediately starts pinging off each other in this, and it just works so well. Like everything about this I think just slots into place perfectly.
Literally all of the characters, any combination is super fun. Yeah. And you start seeing that with this because you're getting those combinations now finally.
Yeah. So Matt, why don't you like this movie? You clearly don't like it.
It's not that I don't like it. It's that it takes itself seriously, mostly. It's a little bit slow, and that's the thing is I'm not saying it's like this is a terribly slow, boring movie. It's just a little bit less economical, a little bit less tight, and you know, just little things like how many times you need to show them racing around the pillars. Like I don't care. Like
that's how you know it's hard because even these guys, they're car superheroes and they can't beat the cameras.
That's how you know they have all the money they need, so they don't have to make all the cuts.
I mean, like I'm just like if it was Ocean's 11 or something, they would show that like once, and then it would be like, yeah, this is hard, and then they would move on to the next thing, and they do it like literally 8 times.
I will give you the fact that Justin Lin is not Steven Soderbergh. I will give that to you.
Yeah, I mean, that's. I don't want to come off as too negative because I enjoy it. I'm being funny when I complain about them pulling the safe around because, like, first of all, that's a really like just intrinsically boring complaint because you could just be like, all right, well, just like pretend the safe was lighter than they said it was and that they're just wrong about its weight. There, solve the problem.
Or their cars have like a gravity flux zone.
They just pulled. They did establish that. I mean, they established that in the second movie that they change space time a little bit when they go into superdrive.
Sure, right. That's the thing. That's the thing is you don't need an explanation for that. This is not hard science fiction. Yeah. It doesn't bother me. I'm just. It's almost that this movie is going in more of a direction of just like it's an action movie, and I'm just like, okay, yeah, fine. Yeah. I like action movies as much as the next guy. It's losing, however, a little bit of what was like idiosyncratic and special about the previous movies. And it's like, well, is that good or bad? It's like I don't know. And that's fine. It's fine. I don't think it's good or bad. It's just changing.
The answer is good.
Okay. I mean, I definitely love The Rock. Yeah,
I mean, like, I just love, like, you pointed out to me when we were talking about this earlier in the week that, like, the one moment in this story where there's going to be a car race and the film cuts away from it.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like, okay, we got to race to get these cars and then fade out.
Yeah,
and then they have the cars.
Yeah.
And it's like the racing's so boring now, guys. Right?
Yeah, like the movie. This is basically the code of the movie saying we don't actually care about car racing anymore. We're done with that. This is about something different now. And I think that's what, like, when you get multi-movie storytelling, that's like, I think that's a pivot you can make and pull off, because it's not a car movie anymore. It's a movie about these characters. It's a movie where you're happy to see all these characters that you like come together again and work together to do something amazing. Like the just the idea behind the set piece, the idea that people sat in a room, professional people sat in a room and said, what if they just drag the safe around by cars? And then someone else is like, oh yeah, and then they can like whip it into the cops that are chasing them. Wouldn't that be cool? And someone else was like, yeah, that would be cool. Let's do the shit out of that. And then they did.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, no, it's great. I mean, it's well shot. Like, you actually buy that they have this giant, massive safe that's smashing through buildings and smashing into cars. Like, this hasn't occurred to me until now, but I'd actually love to know how they did all that.
I presume it was totally, I mean, it had to be totally CG, right? Like, I mean, like...
It was probably like a mix with a lot of practicals. Lots of practicals in there too, and that kind of stuff. But a lot of CG, I'm sure, too, of course.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that's commendable, because if the safe was totally CG, then to make it feel like it had the weight that it did is hard. It's not it's something you can just do.
So yeah, I mean, that's actually kind of amazing that it never looked CG. Like there's no scene where you're like, that looks fake, you know? Even though it's like definitely fake, right? Like there's no way to actually do any of that. So yeah, no, it's funny. It worked so well on me that it didn't even occur to me that it worked on me. So that's like,
that's exactly what they want. They want you to not even notice, just seamlessly enjoy it and not to make you blink twice about it. Mm-hmm. One thing I will say about this whole franchise, though, just thinking about it now, the entire way every single one of these movies is shot is so good. Like a lot of action movies, they try to be a little bit too choppy with it. They move the camera around like too fast, especially if there's anything going around that's quick at all. Like racing movies does do this a lot. But these movies don't. Like, it's really easy to like kind of follow where everything is. It's never too hectic, too crazy. There's still a lot going on, but they don't like they shoot it right. They edit it right. Like, just all of them across the board have this that they keep the quality up with.
Yeah. I agree with that. I mean, I think there are like I said, there's parts of the second one that I don't love the direction in, but I pretty much agree that like the competence behind the director's chair is fantastic, and like they really brought on some really good people to make these very, very silly, ridiculous movies look exciting. They have a way of keeping the pace going well, and I guess Matt doesn't quite agree with that because he thought the fifth one was a bit slow. But I have a very important safe update.
Okay.
Extremely important safe update.
Oh, did you look?
So yeah, obviously part of the safe is CG. But they also there is part of it's practical. They built a safe frame around a car, like a truck front, and they literally drove the safe around.
Yes, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's great. So so this for Fast 5. I've mentioned this to you guys a little bit earlier, but I should mention it for the podcast just for my nerdiness and what could have been. I almost worked on Fast 5.
That's awesome.
Please elaborate.
Yes,
I need to hear this story.
So apparently they were looking for visual effects assistants, and I was like, okay, yeah, definitely. Fast 5. I saw the first movie. Let's go, because this was when they were filming it years and years ago. And they actually, Arizona at the time had a really good tax credit, so a lot of films were coming out there for the desert stuff, and so they were shooting, part of it up in Arizona. But it was like by like Lake Havasu, I think, and like just way up north. Like I'd have to stay in a hotel. I ended up personally having a really, really busy summer, and so having to pay what would have been like $50 a day after my day rate, which is literally just like the minimum assistant rate for visual effects assistant, which by the way, the job that they described that would have been would have been me placing markers on the roads.
Because you need like fun.
I know, right? Like you need perspective markers to do stuff in post-production with like visual effects and all of that, just so you kind of keep the perspective's like one of the biggest things that you can get wrong really easy. So they do a lot of like real life markers and like tracking things. And so that would have been the job. And I would have been having to pay, you know, $50 a night or so for myself because all the hotels in the area and the following area of these like 2 small towns they took over for this production were booked out. And my 4 friends that I knew that I had worked with before that were working on it were already in like a room of like 8 people because everyone was hired local. So there was no other options. It's like, oh, hey, you want to work on this other feature or whatever during the summer for $50 a day? Oh, making $50 a day instead of spending $50 a day? Sure. I just finished college. I'm in. So I ended up doing that, but I did almost work on Fast 5.
Cool. Well,
every time I see the safe pass a point on the road, I'm going to think Sesh could have put that sticker down.
I could have put that sticker down. Could have put that little team mark or little ball or something. Could have been me. But it would have also only been in the desert, so, you know.
I wonder what scene that was for.
I heard it was for Fast 5, but like thinking back and seeing them, the desert, like the opening for the desert thing was the other one, wasn't it?
Yeah, but there was a train sequence that was in a pretty arid place, so maybe that's where they filmed the train sequence.
Yeah. I guess. I mean, it's Arizona. Like it would have been anything very desolate like that. That area looked like one, and there was another car chase in one of the other movies that looked like it. But yeah. It was the least exciting. It was like, you know, 3rd unit of the production. So there was nothing going on.
So you would have had the opportunity possibly to like misplace a marker and cause them to drive off the cliff like in the wrong place. And...
I would have, even better, I would have misplaced the marker, and that one dude in like post-production, like a month or 2 later editing it, would have been like, oh, God damn it, this doesn't look right. That would have been it.
Yeah. Okay. So from Fast 5, the series just spirals into ridiculousness, right? Matt, you thought the safe dragging was ridiculous. In Fast 6, there's a tank, and the tank becomes a catapult for Letty, and Dom crashes his car into a side rail to catapult himself into the air to catch her, and then he lands on a windshield like really hard. Like I love the sound design. I love the sound design in that part of the movie because he smacks against the window shield, and there's like this really audible smack, and the entire windshield cracks, and then he just gets up. He's fine.
Yeah,
he's totally fine.
Brushes it off. I mean, what would you do if you turned off physics? Obviously, I would use a tank as some sort of catapult and save the woman I love.
Yeah. I mean, the movies are actually really consistent about like how tough Dom is. Like he gets shot and he's just like, you know. So.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that's, I mean, I guess like that's a weird thing about this. Like I joked about when I was rereading the intros. No character in this movie suffers a consequence for driving recklessly, right? Like even in Tokyo Drift, where Han is driving recklessly, gets hit, his car blows up. They changed that later to just be it's Shaw killing him. Like he did that on purpose. He hit him and killing him. And I find that especially weird in a franchise where one of its stars was killed in a car accident because the guy he was driving with was driving like a mad person, and they lost control of the car, and that's why he died. And it's just a little weird to me, right? Like I don't want to bring this thing to like a total bummer level because I still think these movies are fantastically fun. But it just feels a little weird to me that like it's all like, yeah, driving like this is awesome and it's so cool and we can do cool things. Oh yeah, but that guy died. Like he died.
Yeah. I mean, none of the main characters do, but man, all these movies are blurred together. I'm not even gonna try to remember which one it was, but there's the one where they have to race for the opportunity to be drug smugglers, and like. And what's funny is that Brian is still actively a cop at this point in time. And in the course of this race, at least 2 of the other racers die horribly in car accidents.
They are canonically dead.
Yeah, and probably almost kill dozens of innocents. But we at least know for a fact that people did die. So there, yeah, no, I mean, you're right that the movie certainly is, you know, not interested in teaching lessons about the dangers of street racing. That is not the purpose of these movies. Yeah, it happens a little bit. But,
I mean, and I don't like. I'm not saying I want it to. Like, I'm not saying I want this movie to be about Fast 9 needs to come out and it needs to be about the dangers of racing recklessly. I'm not saying I want that. It's just like it's a thing that you can't ignore when you have this Paul Walker shaped hole in the movies, and you know why that hole is there. It's a little hard. Like I can't talk about these movies without talking about that. You know.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Where my head goes is like, you know, the Blackadder series in World War I. Does anybody know what I'm talking about?
I do not. What are you talking about?
So.
Well, but Blackadder is like this extremely long running British it's like series of shows, I guess you could say, or maybe it's just a series. I don't know. The point is, Mr. Bean is Blackadder, but he's like a completely different character. And there's a series in World War I. And it's like a British comedy. Everything's funny. It's very funny. Like I've watched the whole show. It's great. It's genuinely hilarious. It's also got Hugh Laurie.
Oh man,
And
this cast already.
And then the last episode of the series is just like they're ordered to charge across no man's land, and they're like, hey, I have a crazy plan for us to get out of this. And it's like, nope, we're just gonna do our duty. And then they all just run into machine gun fire and mortars, and they're dead. And it's like. It's like, yeah, like that's fucking World War I. Like, so you don't get to like pull that punch is kind of my feeling. Like, I think that's great. I think that's exactly how you should do that. And man, this got dark, but I was gonna say you should end the franchise with something horrible and real happening. You know, I don't know. Maybe that's the worst idea in the world. Probably is.
I mean, I
don't think I'd want them to do that.
Like, I could see them like trying to take that kind of responsibility and trying to do like a message behind it or something like that. But I think they had to do their tribute the way they did it. And I think I did hear like a lot of people complain about it, but I saw it. I, was a Paul Walker fan for ages. And
people complained about the tribute?
I did hear complaints about the tribute.
Oh my God. I love it. It was beautiful.
I thought it was wonderful. Yeah. I thought it was really wonderful. And like, it kind of worked out where that's kind of where his character was going. He was already becoming a background character because he wasn't ridiculous like everyone else. And then, they kept with him and the storyline with the wife for the whole time. So like it made sense on a lot of ways, and it was really fitting. And it was just super sad that that's exactly like how it happened. It was reckless driving. Like that was, again, like I saw this with my my Smash buddies, and like one of them like lives up there, literally drives on that same road like every day to work. So, and like it broke her heart because she was also a big fan of his for years, and the movies meant a lot to her. And like it was super super sad. And I don't know. I almost wonder if they've pivoted a little bit. If they ever, like, the real reason they pivoted is if they ever got, like, actual complaints about, like, street racers and, like, the real world of it, like, how sometimes that, I wonder if that's, like, a behind-the-scenes thing. And then, like, I'm sure, like, they were already on the ridiculous, crazy train before, Paul Walker unfortunately died. But I almost wonder if that was, like, a thing, like, they got too many complaints. It's too realistic. It's too making people want to race, and this isn't okay. And because Tokyo Drift, actually, I know you had mentioned, like, one really shines a spotlight on it, but Tokyo Drift too, like that's kind of a big thing as well. Like I remember like I had just watched I had just watched some, not all, wasn't the hugest fan of this anime called Initial D, which is literally just about drifting. And there's apparently a ton of anime out there that is about nothing except drifting.
Wow. Okay. I didn't realize there was a whole anime drifting subculture.
There is. Apparently, you could drift trains. I haven't seen that anime yet, but
I'm sorry.
One
what?
day, yes.
Well, it is Tokyo Drift.
Yep. So this one, Tokyo Drift, came out, and I was like, oh, it's Initial D, the movie. That's great for the series, I guess. But like it's a real thing, and like they really do a lot of that there. Like if any people I know at all would be remotely into street racing, it's some of those friends that I've had that are like specifically like from Japan, and like they come out here, and then there's a whole culture out here for it too. So I could see that there were being complaints about it, and then just in that way, Possibly, but I don't know. I don't know why it really took a ridiculous turn, and it is kind of silly that there's not really any negative consequences except sometimes people lose their nice cars and then they get them back, after because they got all the money from the heist anyways. So
sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, street, like, you can only get so much. You can only create so many different street racing scenarios until you're just like, yep, Dom wins again. And it just kind of makes sense from a monetary point of view that they would just morph into generic action movies eventually, because they're trying to maximize their advertising cross section.
Yeah. I mean, I think you're absolutely right. I do think it's like, I do think that the later movies, I think 8 did kind of pivot away from doing like people driving in public streets recklessly just for stupid fun races. But I say that, and then I remember the opening of 8 is Dom in Cuba driving in a stupid street race that he wins just for his own stupid pride and like almost kills a bunch of people. And it's just like, you made this right after Paul Walker died.
I know.
But anyway, I mean, I loved the tribute to him in the movie though. I
really did too.
I can't get it. Like I watched that movie again today. Yeah. And I cried
perfect.
Again at the Paul Walker tribute. Like,
it's perfect. It's obviously like it's a real tribute from his real life friend Vin Diesel and like everyone that was behind the scenes of making those movies. Like it's absolutely. I think it was really perfect. I think it was really well done. I don't think
Matt,
you haven't done it differently at all.
You haven't seen the movie, Matt. So it's basically like he's playing on the beach with his kid. And the rest of the team is on looking at how happy he is, and then Dom like gets up and goes to his car and drives away alone. And then like while he's waiting at a stoplight, Paul Walker shows up next to him, and they they drive together, like looking at each other, smiling while sad music is playing. And then like the road turns left and Paul Walker turns off, and they just drive apart from each other. And then all while Vin Diesel, like it's Dominic Toretto doing a voiceover about how much he cares about Brian, but it's Vin Diesel like doing a voiceover talking about how much he loved Paul Walker, and it's just it's like a beautiful, like you're sad because he's gone, but you're like happy because like this is a guy that was so loved, and it's just like a beautiful like send off to a person. Like it was such a tragic death, but it was a beautiful way to send off both his character and for just like you can tell. Vin Diesel really loved this guy. Like he calls him his brother in the movie, but like that's how he felt, in real life too. And it was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, like Vin Diesel. I know, right? Vin Diesel's like actually his kid's like godfather.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah.
Like they were super close. They were really good friends. And I think they did really handle it. Like it was really great. It was a really beautiful way to handle it.
Yeah. So let's talk about something ridiculous. Let's talk about the Vin Diesel, The Rock feud.
Yeah.
So maybe you know more than me, but like it seems like there's very little concrete evidence about what this actually was.
So we know that they did publicly. So The Rock is filming Fast 8, okay? And then he tweets or Instagrams something along the line of that he has zero tolerance for candy asses. I very distinctly remember the phrase zero tolerance for candy asses because I thought it was hilarious and I used it for an entire day. If someone said something to me, it was like, yeah, well, I have zero tolerance for candy asses. So
yeah, right.
And it comes out later that yes, he was talking about Vin Diesel in that, and they do not get along. And I think the reason they do not get along is this franchise is Vin Diesel's baby, and The Rock is a very bright star, and The Rock is taking some of that spotlight away from Vin Diesel, and Vin Diesel really doesn't like that. And I don't want to like sell him entirely like up the river. Like this is his. He created this thing, right? So. Yeah. He sees himself losing control of it. There's reality to that because everyone, especially after the 8th movie, was kind of talking about how like, hey, Vin Diesel isn't that good in this movie. Like, just make Hobbs the main character. And they're making a Hobbs Shaw spin-off movie. Like that is happening. So like the writing on the wall that Vin Diesel saw is was accurate. This was happening. And also there's all kinds of stories about Vin Diesel that he like we said, he's a guy who takes this stuff very seriously. I think everyone that works on these movies are in on the joke that these movies are insane, except for Vin Diesel. I think he takes them very, very, very seriously. And The Rock is the type of guy that I think is just his personality. He has a very strong personality to match his giantness. And that just rubs someone like Vin Diesel the wrong way.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, The Rock's he's done so many action things, and he was so, theatrical even before he was acting in movies. Like, I could definitely see that it was just, like another rodeo for him. Like, okay, now I'm in this flick. All right, let's just do my thing. And just kind of walks all over. And, like, people did love it. Like, I think he's great in it. He's super fun. And it's like, I can see, even if it's not just a jealousy thing, even so much as a loss of control thing. Because once, it kind of sucks. Like, it's like this whole, like, I mean, we say, like, influencer now, but there's a star power to it. And, like, the star power, they start to take control over something. Like, you have to give the fans what they want. You have to sell it. You have to do A-listers. Like, this is why casting is, like, for the big levels, like high level studios, like, it's so important. Like, you look at how much revenue different actors bring in, and they look at all of that, and like, if he's getting like a whole spin-off series, it's like he's losing his baby, like this whole series. Yeah,
right. I mean, I think one thing about Vin Diesel is he is actually kind of like fairly straightforward, and one thing that he did say was like and it's kind of hilarious also, but he's kind of, among other things, he says it's not always easy being an alpha, and it's two alphas. Being an alpha is sometimes a pain in the butt. So basically he's saying, like, we're both like macho dickheads, and it doesn't work for us if there's more than one person like that in the room at the same time, because
I can see that.
Yeah. You want to know what's hilarious?
What?
That's a line in Fast 7.
Yeah, well,
Roman. So they meet this hacker lady in Fast 7, and she's like assigning them all the architects they belong to, and she looks at Vin Diesel. She looks at Vin Diesel and says, "You're the alpha," and Roman, of course, says, "I'm also the alpha, double alpha," and everyone's like, "No, you can't do that." So I wonder if that's a line taken, like Vin Diesel took that, or if they took that from him.
I wonder. I actually love that character. She was great. I had so much fun with her too.
Yeah, what was her name again? I can't remember.
I forget. She's what's her face from Game of Thrones?
Ramses or something. Ramsey. I think her name's Ramsey. She's a hacker name. Yeah, that's her name.
No, she was great. Her and Ludacris are amazing together. I loved it.
So I mean, I think you're right that these are just two very powerful personalities, and that's the thing about this. Like, this is a $1 billion franchise. The last two movies in this franchise made over $1 billion. But is Vin Diesel a $1 billion movie star? I don't. He's not.
No. I mean,
The Rock is.
Yeah, right. Like, Vin Diesel's like a weird acquired taste, and I say that as someone who loves him.
Yeah, I think you're right. Have you ever? Did I ever show you that short film that he made?
No, I've known about that forever. I didn't know there was. Where would you watch it?
I saw it on the internet. So
where would I watch it? Rather, I could just look for it, I guess.
I'm googling it right now.
Sorry, I
just tell us about this.
I have to read one more quote from the Feud. Okay. Vin and I had a few discussions, including an important face-to-face in my trailer, Johnson explained. And what I came to realize is that we have a fundamental difference in philosophies on how we approach movie making and collaborating. So, like, what this actually was probably them, like, getting up in each other's face and sticking fingers in each other's chests, and then yeah. Anyway.
And the funny thing is, if you look at Fast 8, knowing that this stuff happened, you can kind of tell that they weren't on set at the same time very often. Mm-hmm. Like, there's moments, like, yes, there's some wide shots where they're very clearly on set together, but you can kind of tell they do, like, medium or close-ups where they didn't have to be in the same room when they shot these things.
Like a lot of off-camera stuff.
Yeah. So they definitely don't get along, and I wonder what that means for the 9th movie in the franchise, right? Like, I know Hobbs is gonna have a spin-off thing, and do they write him out of the 9th movie because these two characters don't get along? Does Vin Diesel have that sway to do that? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, storyline wise with Vin Diesel, like if he is willing to ever let go of this series and give it to him, like it could kind of work where he goes off and he actually becomes a family man as well.
Yeah, I just don't see Vin Diesel.
I don't really see it either. Unless the only way it'll happen is if somehow somebody gives him the 100 million or so, or I don't know how many millions it would be to do his Hannibal movie.
Oh yeah.
I want him to get back to just making Riddick movies. I don't care if they make any money.
I know. I want more Riddick movies too.
Says the guy who like didn't realize there was a third Riddick movie.
You haven't fucking seen it. That's why he's not making Riddick movies, because when Matt doesn't see Riddick movies, Vin doesn't make Riddick movies.
All your fault, Matt.
Oh my
all
God,
your
you're
fault.
Right. Look, they failed to advertise it if I didn't know it existed.
So I think we're getting near the end here, and I wanted to wrap up kind of talking about the future of this series, because I think they're in a moment now. This is movie number 8. They're in a moment where I think they need a Fast 5 level of pivoting to reinvigorate this franchise. They had this pivot with 5, and really 6, 7, and 8 have just built off the type of movie that 5 was, and they've kind of tried to top themselves. Like 8 has them jumping out of a plane in a car with a parachute on it, which is just so insane and wonderful. 8 tries to do like a whole thing. They're fighting against a submarine with their cars. But I think they really need a pivot. And this movie's coming out in 2020, as far as I know. I don't know if it's been delayed or not, but it's coming out in 2020. I've heard that Justin Lin is back directing. I think that was news. I don't know if that has changed, but that's what I've heard. So
I've heard that too.
I think this is possibly a really good opportunity for them to pivot again. I don't know what they would pivot to, but that's not. I'm not. That's why I'm not the one making the movie. Okay, I want to hear this. What do you think?
I think I mentioned it to you, and I really, really hope they do this. It could happen in this world where things are being combined and out there, and just all of this is happening. I really want to see. I don't even know what the title would be. It would be Fast Furious, the Jurassic Fast and the Furious. I want to see Jurassic World mesh with this. I don't like the Jurassic World movies. Oh God, they need so much help. And I think I want to see these guys fighting dinosaurs. I think they're capable.
Yeah.
And I think the third movie is going to be, an apocalyptic dinosaur ruin of America. And these guys could save it.
Yeah. No, I'd love a lot about like Dom is having a conversation with someone, and like you just see in the background there's like a TV, and it's clearly like Ian Malcolm, and it's like, yeah, what, there have been dinosaurs in this world the whole time.
Yeah.
What?
Matt, how would you feel if it turns out The Fast and the Furious was actually just a stealth Dino Riders prequel?
Oh my God.
Oh man.
That works really well.
Doesn't it? Can you imagine the family? Like, this time it ain't about cars.
Yeah.
It's time to ride.
Yeah.
Dino ride.
Yeah.
Get me a Corona Stegosaurus.
They discover a secret like government spaceship which teleports them back in time, and I mean I can see it all.
There could be an awkward moment where they're like, oh, we're using a lot of fuel. Oh, the dinosaurs. Fossil fuels. It'd be so fantastic. I'm telling you, this is where this movie could go now. Either that or they don't need superpowers. So that's out of the question, Like, they're already human Avengers as it is, plus no physics. We need dinosaurs.
Yeah,
we need dinosaurs.
For some reason, I feel like Dom and Chris Pratt's character in Jurassic World are like equally repugnant to me, but
oh no! How
like
dare
in the same
you?
exact way.
That's the meanest thing you've ever said to Vin Diesel.
That is so. Yeah, that is mean.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
upset.
But the thing is, like, maybe they meet each other and they both realize how irritating they are, and then they change, and then I don't have to hate them anymore.
That might be true, but Vin Diesel's character isn't like really annoying and sexist the whole time.
He's
kind of is.
He's He's a more harmless kind of sexist, if such a thing exists.
I mean, I'm trying to think back in the movie if he really is. I mean, he's stereotypical protective of his sister, but she doesn't do any of that. That doesn't mean all women can't do it. Like Letty, she'll give her the wheel first before anyone.
Yeah.
That is
perhaps
true.
I'm assuming that the male gaze that's being conveyed by the camera is shared by Vin Diesel.
That is true. And I don't think it is. I actually don't think it is.
I don't think it is either.
Because no one ever, like, Vin Diesel never comments on how hot people are in this movie. That's what Roman and Tej do. They comment on how hot the women are. Vin Diesel just kind of, like, smirks when they, like...
What's funny is Brian also comments on how hot the women are, even when he has a girlfriend. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
that's true.
Every guy does.
Brian also comments on how hot Roman is because he's in love with him.
Yeah, that's true.
That is one thing I wish they brought back in Fast 5. I feel like because Roman had Tej, the Brian Roman like bromance wasn't there.
Yeah. It could have been a lot stronger. Like, I would have liked to see more of that. They definitely went off some different combos.
Yeah. Well, all I know is whatever Fast 9 ends up being, I will be there day one. Excited to see it. Excited to see cars crash into each other and never-ending runways and whatever other nonsense they come up with for the series. It's got to go to space eventually, right? Like, it's got to go to space.
So. I hope so. I think dinosaurs and then space. Or maybe the other way around.
No, you know what universe this is in? Dom is the next 007.
Yes.
Much like
we've looked
Bond.
at your record.
By the 20th Bond movie, you have to be in space. So
that's you're right. There we go.
It's true. It's true. You know, I was trying to think of the movie that this series most represents, and I almost wanted to say Mission Impossible, but I think James Bond is a little closer.
Yeah, I could see both. I see where you're going.
Jurassic World, that's the one.
Yeah, I mean that's the one that just makes me smile. So yeah. Let's call someone about this.
I'll try.
Okay.
Yeah. Does anyone have any connections with Colin Trevorrow?
Right.
All right. I think. Did you have anything else you wanted to say, guys? I think we sufficiently talked about the Fast and the Furious.
I think I'm good.
The short film that I was talking about, I will say this for the audience, that Vin Diesel wrote and directed in 1995 is called Multifacial. It's pretty much autobiographical. It's about a struggling actor who's trying to land roles, and he goes into these auditions and everyone sees him as something different. Like, some people want him to play really, like, because Vin Diesel is like kind of like racially ambiguous, right? Like you're not sure exactly, like he slots into a lot of different racial stereotypes. He goes to all these casting sessions in the short and basically is asked to be a racial stereotype and a different one in each place. And it's kind of like him talking about struggling as an actor when he was very young, trying to get into the business. So it's really good. It's 20 minutes long. It's worth watching. It's Vin Diesel. Like, it's kind of remarkable, and why I think he's like secretly really, really talented. He just like loves playing a certain character that masks that talent a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, 100% agree.
Yeah, I've wanted to watch this forever. So yeah.
I will send a link out to that on the show notes, and I will send it to you right now, Matt.
All right.
Woo.
All right, so I think that's it, guys. Did we have anything else we wanted to talk about before we go?
I don't think so. I think it's a good.
I think it was a long enough episode. Yeah.
Unless you want to do a whole bit on Pitch Black.
Man, Matt, we should have a Pitch Black episode.
Yeah. No, you know what? I need to watch the last Riddick movie, and then we can just do a full Riddick episode.
Ooh.
There you go.
Yeah.
That will be a 5-hour episode, because I'm sure you can talk about that forever.
I think so.
All right, guys, that is all we had for you this week. If you have any opinions on any of the Fast and the Furious movies, or Vin Diesel, or The Rock, or any of the stuff, feel free to reach out to us via email at doofmedia@gmail.com, or over on Twitter @doofmedia.
Yeah, and if you're not already subscribed to this podcast, we encourage you to do so and ensure you never miss an episode. You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, and pretty much anywhere else podcasts can be found.
You can find this and all the other shows we do over at doofmedia.com. And if you like what we do here and want to support us, consider becoming a patron of Doof Media. head on over to patreon.com/doofmedia and pledge $1 a month or whatever else you can afford to help ensure we keep growing and keep making new stuff.
Also, please consider rating and reviewing us on the Apple Podcasts. Every review helps us get more exposure and introduces new people to the content that we make here.
That's absolutely right. Sesh, thank you so much for joining us for this episode.
Thank you so much for having me. I love talking to you guys and about movies I love.
I had a lot of fun with this one, as we should, because it's Fast and the Furious, and how can you not have fun with it?
It's supposed to be fun, and
Yeah.
we had fun.
We did. So thanks so much. Sesh, where are you on the internet for those that want to stalk you?
Oh, well, all kinds of good places. I am on Twitter as Sesh Evans, and then I'm also on Instagram as Seshiyivi, and most importantly, Twitch, where you get the best and most interactions under Review Sesh. And you can see me play all kinds of video games and maybe some Mario Kart 8, just to get that Fast and the Furious vibe while I stream.
That's great. Thanks again for hanging out with us. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks.
And guys, we'll see you all next week. I don't know what we're gonna do yet, Matt. I think we're gonna try to do another patron thing. We're trying to catch up on these. We're so behind.
Yeah, let's do our best.
Yeah, but we'll be back next week with another episode. We'll see you then.
See you later.
My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say. My name is Doof, and you'll do what I say.